Are you a game changer, rule breaker, or just interested in the latest tech? If so, don't miss the largest gathering of tech and cyber pioneers the North has ever seen. DTX Manchester is returning to Manchester Central on the 2nd and 3rd of April, bringing you the very best tech solutions from local and global providers and helping you stay at the cutting edge and solving tomorrow's problems today. As part of Manchester's Tech Week, DTX Manchester is definitely not one to miss, powering the Northern Tech Revolution. This is the Secure Cyber Connect podcast with Jay Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information and cybersecurity, technology and talent acquisition professionals who share their journeys, unique perspectives and offer advice and guidance. Our guest on this episode is Thomson, and our topics will be AI in cybersecurity teams and enhancing efficiency, productivity and threat detection. Graham is a Chief Information Security and Innovation Officer at UK legal and financial services firm Irwin Mitchell. With a background in military intelligence and over 25 years of experience across various sectors, Graham is recognised as an industry thought leader within cyber, with a firm commitment to leadership, team development and community engagement through education. In 2021, Graham received the Team Leader of the Year award from the X-Forces in Business Awards, and in both 2023 and again in 2024, he won the Global CISO 100 award for his vast contributions to cybersecurity. Graham, thanks so much for joining us today and welcome to the Secure Cyber Connect podcast.
Welcome. Hi. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So just to sort of start proceedings, could you give us a very brief high-level overview of some of the key themes we'll be discussing today and what brings you to the podcast?
Sure. Well, I'd love to talk about the transformative role of AI in cybersecurity and in the teams as well, not just in the products, how it enhances efficiency and productivity as well as threat detection. I can give some real world examples there too, and the challenges and benefits as well, and look at some of the future trends of AI and cybersecurity. I'm also here because I believe in the power of knowledge sharing and community engagement. I'm a tech geek. I wouldn't, you wouldn't expect anything else. And, just really excited to be able to share some knowledge.
Absolutely, likewise. And look, one of our first questions for all of our guests is to ask them really, if there's something that they may be proud of or excited about that isn't typically to be featured on your LinkedIn profile, for example.
Sure. Well, what I'd really like to do is get involved in helping, whether it's coaching or mentoring new cybersecurity people into the industry and veterans as well, who are transitioning into the civilian world in general, but also in cybersecurity careers. So it's incredibly rewarding to see people learn and adapt, and then really grow and succeed in the field. Particularly passionate about entry level people and bringing them up to speed in the industry, and that's regardless of background. Diversity of thought definitely leads to more innovation and stronger teams. The industry talks about, or has talked about, recruitment problems in cybersecurity for a long time, but I don't really see it that way. If you look for potential in people, that enthusiasm and that ability to learn, then you can develop people and fill the gaps that are needed and really help people launch their careers.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
No, we both totally agree with you on that. And Graham, your background in military intelligence is a really fascinating one. And I want to personally take the opportunity to thank you for your services. Now, for many other veterans, community members, and some of our guests from across the globe, they've actually come from military backgrounds themselves and has certainly influenced their approach to leadership and managing risk. So I'd be curious to gain a better understanding of the biggest challenge that you faced when you've transitioned from the military sector into the civilian life and how that's actually shaped your journey and perspective on cybersecurity.
Yeah, it had its challenges doing that transition. It was a long time ago now, 20 odd years ago. But, one of the biggest challenges was trying to understand what were my actual skills. What were those transferable skills? How do civilian businesses actually work and hire, and the whole kind of process was a bit of an unknown. I remember when I was my last few months and weeks, I was on a top of a mountain in a particular theatre in a different country, trying to get a phone signal so I could speak to recruiters, and set some interviews up for
They're everywhere, aren't they?
and set some interviews up. So by having those conversations with recruiters, I was able to start building up some knowledge and getting some insights, and having being coached through actually what are my skills, what are jobs available, what should I be going into. I think the industry's much better now than it was then, particularly enabled by the internet, social media, all of that. You don't have to physically go to lots of recruitment fairs and all of that. You can, and the same with networking, you can do a lot of that online now. So, individuals who are looking to transition from the services can do a lot more research. There's a lot of, I believe there's a lot more help as well available within the services themselves for leavers. But yeah, making that initial change was, it was a bit of a leap into the unknown, because you give quite a lot of notice. You don't find a job and then join a few months later. You leap into the dark and hope for the best. But one of the things that works really well for me and was completely outside my comfort zone was using networks, as in people networks. So a lot of the services have their own set up leavers networks, like resettlement cells and that sort of thing. And I would strongly suggest, people in that situation use those networks. Talk to people, phone people up who've made themselves available for that. And even if it's not in your comfort zone, those people are there because they want to help. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with just contacting them out of the blue and asking to use that help that they've offered. So, I did that a long time ago, back when it was just, good old landline and a paper list of numbers, and called up a few people, and there was a couple of people who were willing to help. One individual actually took me to their offices for one of the mobile phone networks and showed me how an office actually operated. And although that individual didn't have any jobs themselves, they did know of someone. And so it's that whole network thing where, connections started to transpire. I did actually have a spot of luck. And I think, it's a combination of, you make your own luck. You have to present yourself, you have to put the effort in, but in doing so, that opens up the opportunity for luck to just happen. And, I had a bit of a lucky break, I guess, when I was in that operational theatre. As I was leaving, we had a bit of a very small get-together for people from the intelligence community. And a few drinks and a little bit of a celebration. And I happened to bump into the most senior person in the intelligence corps that I was in, the director of intelligence himself, who sadly passed away a few years ago. But he's a really nice guy. And I didn't know him, but we crossed paths a few times because it was a small corps. But I was very junior, and he was the most senior person. Anyway, we had a conversation. He was retiring. He knew I was leaving. And he said, if you ever need a reference, here's my number. I thought, okay, I'm never going to use that, but I'll put that in the back pocket. Anyway, one of the interviews that I had when I was interviewing for my first kind of civvy job, the person who was a director of security and an ex-senior Met Copper said at the end of it, you got any references? And I thought, why not just give it a go? So I mentioned this person, and he went, oh, I know him. so a bit of lucky, and I got the job. And that really then started my path into, security fields, leading to cybersecurity and information security eventually. So I think, for me, you've got to put the effort in. Networks do help, even if it's uncomfortable and outside your zone. But it's worth doing, and that's something that follows through for pretty much your whole career. You never stop learning, and you always, it's all about connections and experiences.
Totally agree with you. So appreciate you sharing that. And where we've actually seen senior leaders succeed are those that tap into networks that are perhaps outside of cyber as well. DevOps communities, agile communities, transformation communities, for instance, and gain the understanding of their challenges. Of course, you've got that support network from a well-being standpoint as well. Others have obviously utilised sort of fitness and training to sort of balance it and have that support network. So no, we do appreciate you sharing that, Graham.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So, look, getting into AI and looking at transformation and innovation in a bit more detail. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions, and AI is clearly transforming industries everywhere, and there's a lot of views and perspectives on it, particularly within cyber. How have you seen it improve efficiency and productivity and threat detection within teams?
Well, over the last few years, as in, 7 to 10 years, I've seen machine learning, that aspect of AI, the analytics sort of side, embedded into security products, whether it's SIEM or filtering, blocking, alerting type software on various different threats, and really seeing that transform what were really terrible systems to use and requiring lots of manual log inspection, investigations, doing a lot of analytics yourself, downloading huge amounts of data into Excel and doing investigations, really slow, clunky, missing loads of stuff. And that's really transformed to automating that, taking the legwork out of it so that analysts are really just seeing meaningful insights to then react to, rather than just a whole load of pointless noise. So that means analysts have been able to be a lot more effective at their job, doing things super quick and actually getting the results you're trying to get. And then on the other side of the kind of machine learning against threats to automatically block or alert, I've seen that really grow as well and be effective. So whether it's in email systems for phishing or emails going out, like data loss prevention, and the biggest non-cyber data breach threat, which is sending emails to the wrong person. There's been software for a while that's used machine learning to really nail that and pop up and warn the user, do you really mean to send this to that person? Really effective. So that's when I've seen AI and machine learning just really come into its own and do what those security products are supposed to do without all the heavy lifting from the security team side, which means you can be a lot more efficient and you can focus on the other side of things, the people elements, and actually being troops on the ground when there's issues potentially happening, going and investigating that and getting it resolved rather than just wading through data and logs. And then more recently, so over really the last couple of years, you've then got generative AI, and you had to really be living in a cave not to miss that. So all of a sudden, certain tasks that were maybe beyond some people or a struggle or would take a lot of time can be done really quickly now with generative AI. So examples of just things like summarizing large documents, understanding what certain complex technical speak actually means, which kind of lowers the technical barrier within teams, because you can start to learn and self-learn and understand things without without being too bamboozled. But what it also does is it's on the flip side, it means that when you have, and security teams can be a bit notorious for this, when you have individuals who are very technical, very, very clever and very good at what they do, but struggle to convert that language into something the business can understand, generative AI tools really help with that, because you can literally just say, take my gobbledygook and transform it into something that the layman can understand, explain it to a 10-year-old kind of thing. So it's really good at that text manipulation for efficiency, writing material, writing policies, training material, intranet articles, for your internal news, all of that kind of stuff can be done super quick once you know how to use the tools. But they can also be, they're also very powerful at doing a level of data analytics. So if you have spreadsheets of data that, maybe you're involved in an investigation and you're looking at some logs or some alerts or some trend, being able to just put that data in and ask questions on it, get it to extract some insights, I found that to be pretty powerful as well. And then you've got things like document analysis. So if you've got security documents that need to be analysed, it might be a supplier contract, it might be T's and C's or privacy policies or whatever it is. And typically a lot of these documents are pretty huge. So these tools can be pretty good at analysing that. You have to be very clear about what you want out of it, but is it missing any clauses that you would be typically in those types of documents? Just doing that kind of general analysis. It doesn't replace you sort of reading through it completely, but what it does is it speeds up that task so that you can then laser focus in on the things that do really need to be done. And there's all sorts of use cases on that. One of the other things that is really good is basic kind of code writing. I'm not talking about security teams, writing web code or anything like that, but things like SQL or KQL for the security systems. You're writing queries to extract data, to do some insights or write some reports. Well, with generative AI, particularly models like GPT-4o and there are others, but they're very good at writing certain codes, including SQL and KQL. So you've kind of gone from, if you've got security systems where you've got your analysts writing those kind of scripts to do their job and analyze data, you've kind of gone from having to have experts in that code writing or people who are not experts having to really struggle away and do a lot of research, to now almost anyone can, in plain English, just write what they want. It writes the code for you. You kind of need to know a bit about it so you can check the code and tweak things as needed. But yeah, I've found it's gone from needing a bit of TLC to being pretty much spot on in one shot. And certainly with Microsoft now integrate that directly into the security products. So, even just a year ago, you would have to use a separate generative AI system to write the code and then copy it into the Microsoft security system and do a bit of tweaking and make sure it works. Now, it's there in your face in that security system. So instead of writing the code or copying it in, you just ask plain English. It works in a couple of different ways. Some of it just writes the code like it previously did independently, and you've still got to do a little bit of manipulation. But there is part of that tooling where you just ask the question, it does all the log searches for you. You can look at external sources as well that you've told it to look at, or documents you've given it, and compile that all together. I mean, that's really powerful. So yeah, anything from, if we do a monthly security report, it's quite a meaty kind of presentation of all our security status and stats and what we've been doing and any issues and all that kind of stuff. And we look at horizon scanning, cyber threat assessments, that sort of thing. because a lot of it's text from data, you can now do a lot of it semi-automatically just by prompting in these security tools. So, really speeds up a whole load of processes. And none of this, over the last, 10, 15 odd years, none of it is really replacing jobs in the cybersecurity industry. In fact, it's just creating more. But what it's doing is changing those jobs so that there are a lot less manual on certain areas where you can now focus on, other things. So, so it's definitely changed jobs, but it hasn't negatively, I wouldn't say it's negatively impacted that. In fact, it's all been completely positive as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, it's clearly been transformative in many ways. And what challenges do you think we've got? Let's sort of flip it a little bit. I mean, what challenges are faced maybe when implementing these tools, and what are some of the negatives that it may have in the way teams handle threat management?
Sure. Well, certainly from a generative AI point, there's still a bit of fear, uncertainty, and doom around some of them in some areas. One of the challenges is that the area is moving so quickly. The tools that we're talking about a year ago, they changed within 6 months, and now they've changed again. So we've kind of gone from independent generative AI systems to now integrated, and then gone from integrated to agentic, as they call it, which is a bit of automation. So instead of it just being prompt, analyze data and come back with an answer, it can now get data from various different sources. It can now post data to various different places. It can do some tasks, emailing, dropping documents, all of that. And that's very, very recent, but that's something that we'll see a lot more of in the future. So we've gone from a bit of fear that, these things are going to take over the world. That was always ridiculous. That was never going to be the case. To a bit of understanding, but still having to be a bit technical, prompt engineering, as we're calling it, and a bit of manual ability to put these tools together. For example, building stuff in OpenAI or in Azure AI. Google's got them as well. Amazon, they've all got them. But we're now then moving to, it's a commodity. It's a lot of it's out of the box. You don't need to do much. And now with agents, you don't even need to prompt. You can create an agent with a background prompt that does a specific thing, give that to everyone that needs it, and they never have to know that they're actually using a prompt. So that's the challenge, is it changes so quickly. Where you've got to ask yourself, where do you invest? How much do you invest? And one of the, I kind of picked up and drove the generative AI stuff in my business simply because I had a passion for it on one side. On the other side, I had a big concern from a security compliance point of view. I didn't want lots of colleagues picking this, using public systems, posting in all our sensitive data, because I could see that how powerful they were, and that adoption was going to be really rapid, and therefore the risk was going to be really high. So by picking it up, I was able to secure it really quickly, build our own, and really take it from there. And so I've really seen it transform hugely over that time period, and seen all those kind of challenges. There's the ethical concerns, depending on what you're using the tools for and what kind of data you're using in it. Then there's the regulatory concerns, because regulations are typically get talked about a lot in advance, but then take a while to come into place, and during which point all the text changed anyway. There's and of course everyone's got a view on it, strong or otherwise. But one thing I have seen is adoption. Because it's fast moving, adoption has been very quick with real tech enthusiasts and people who kind of get it and get into it. But for those that are not particularly tech savvy, it's been a bit bewildering and kind of,
There's a lot of caution. I think people are cautious, and as you touched on, I think cautious about what to invest in, because it is such a fast-paced swathe of new technology that I think people have only got so much money, and they've got to be mindful about where they place that, for sure.
Well, that's it. I mean, there were organisations, maybe 18 months, a couple of years ago, who, lucky for them, had a lot of money to sort of, let's build a whole load of tools and let's put a load of investment in it. And we've got this, great tool that's used these models that are out of the box. 6 months later, Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, whoever, just now provide that as a commodity, pay as you go, and they do it better than you'd have done it. So, being cautious is definitely helpful in those fast moving areas. But I think it would have been wrong to do nothing, because they are so powerful and they are so useful. There's a quote been going around for a while from it was a professor speaking at the World Economic Forum a few years ago, so before Gen AI stuff really, but said AI won't take your job, but someone using AI will. And I think that's really come to the fore now, because that is the case, and it not just in security, but I think in all sorts of jobs, particularly jobs that are text or data orientated, because Gen AI in particular is just so good at giving you that boost. I mean, if you're an expert at writing, great copy, then AI is probably not going to help you. It might speed up a few areas. But if you're really rubbish at writing, eloquent copy for other uses, then it can elevate that skill. So I think, it can't elevate all skills, and it's certainly not necessarily the best at doing all sorts of tasks. But for certain areas, it can really help give you a bit of a bit.
So, Graham, you've worked across varying industries, from financial services, retail, manufacturing, and of course, most recently, the legal tech sector. And you've helped drive innovation, especially in relation to transformation. I know we're going to speak about the likes of DTX later on in the session, but from a transformation cybersecurity standpoint, what are the common challenges you're seeing cross-sector, and how do you think AI is going to enable us to overcome those challenges?
So a lot of business transformation over the last few years has been around, digital and IT transformation, basically moving to the cloud. So moving from on-prem systems to cloud systems, whether that's, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, you name it, SaaS systems. And, not surprisingly, as a result, one of the top 5 threats, I think it's number 3, is cloud configuration. So when you move to those systems, the risk profile kind of changes depending on whether you're going for platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, or software as a service. So if you pick, say, software as a service, well, you might then not be required as your business to do the patching and software updates and what have you. You just use it out of the box, but there's still potentially a bit of configuration, access control, and certainly with infrastructure as a service, patching may well be done for you, but there's other configurations, stuff being exposed to the internet, APIs, all of that kind of stuff. Basically configurations, but that's now what gets you. That's now the risk profile. So whether it's a lack of MFA on admin accounts, something as basic as that, exposed APIs without authentication, all of that now becomes a huge risk. And so security teams then need to adapt from what would be, previously doing scans and audits internally of internal systems, looking at patching levels, and potentially a lot of that infrastructure not even being public facing in any case. You're now looking at, well, how do you scan these rapidly changing cloud systems, especially when a lot of the configuration or a lot of the setup your business isn't necessarily responsible for. So how do you get that assurance rather than just doing a kind of one-off annual questionnaire to the supplier? So there's various tools out there where I think they call it cloud security posture management or something like that. I'm sure that'll change over the years. But you want to be getting 24/7 metrics on your security status, your cloud security posture. So that's where also AI, machine learning comes in place, because you don't just want to have a whole load of meaningless logs and metrics. You want actual insights, actionable insights. You want to know not just what configuration isn't quite right, but why it's not quite right. How can that be exploited, and how can it be fixed, more importantly? And there's tools out there now that really nail that. So that means your security teams need to kind of evolve with that migration. So the skills required to secure on-prem servers and on-prem infrastructure is a little bit different from being able to secure cloud systems, particularly if your business has gone pretty much 100% cloud. And the whole speed of it as well. You've got to be on top of that 24/7 monitoring, because it's that's now exposed 24/7.
And from your perspective, thinking cross-sector, what would you say the key three drivers are for organizations going on a transformational period or phase?
The driver, I think, is not necessarily costs, because quite often the cost of running cloud services is more than running it internally. Of course, running it internally at low cost inevitably can mean not keeping it up to date, not feeding and watering it, and eventually it's going to go end of life, and it's going to start to have other challenges. So you're paying for someone else to manage that, and obviously there's a cost for that. But what you end up with is a more efficient server that is potentially easier to run, because there's a lot more outsourced going on. You just pay the bill, and stuff gets done. You don't need to necessarily have armies of internal people feeding and watering those systems. You still need armies of people to now do some different tasks on it. But it's the efficiency, the productivity side of it, and really the agility to change. So if you want to adapt your business to new markets and produce new services, either supported or led by the technology, then when you move to the clouds, or you move to certain clouds, you have a much more agile ability to make those changes. Because instead of buying hardware in and bringing it in-house and configuring it and doing all of that, you can now spin up new services through scripting, and you're just paying those monthly bills of CPU usage and storage. So the purpose then of transformation is really efficiency of your operations and agility of your business to adapt to markets.
That's brilliant. We've also seen organizations, UX being at the forefront, of course, user experience. Obviously, efficiency and lowering costs are certainly going to be something that resonate with many boards. And sort of moving on from that, we've certainly seen a lot of chatter about DeepSeek, for instance. So I was just curious to gain your perspective in terms of looking at the wider industry from AI or even cybersecurity standpoint. Are there any trends out there that are exciting you, or something that perhaps needs a bit more attention?
Well, I think in security teams, it should always boil down to what's the risk. So new technology, new AI models, and something around the corner. It's always going to be there. People within businesses or businesses themselves may well be excited about adopting that technology really quickly, but you want to look at what's the risk of that, and it's just back to your boring old risk assessment methodology. You know, where is data stored? What's the transparency of those systems that are being used? You know, what data is being processed and where is it stored and how is it used and all of that kind of stuff. That's not particularly exciting, but it's all about protecting your business. So when it comes to things like new AI models, there's various responsible AI kind of frameworks that some of these organizations sign up to. So, you know, if you're an organization that's concerned about that kind of thing, then you'd want to look at the providers of those models. What do they sign up to? How transparent and ethical are they? And, you know, the model's independently tested and all that kind of stuff. You've got to look at what you want to use it for. And so, I mean, some of these models, including DeepSeek, they're open source, so others can, you know, scrutinize these models, and there's plenty out there that do. So, you know, simply by doing a lot of research, you know, you can identify risk elements, risk levels of those different models and providers. But I think really, if you're picking a large language model to do some particular tasks with, you know, you would start really looking at what's. You're not going to develop your own unless you've got huge amounts of money. You're either going to use an open source one, or you're going to buy one from a provider like, you know, Google, Microsoft, Amazon. And so that's really where your strategy would start. Are you going to use open source and run them internally? What are the limitations of that? Or are you going to just use them as a commodity, pay your monthly fee, and let someone else worry about all the processing side of it? So, you know, you wouldn't just go into it blindly and think, oh, it's a new exciting model, I'll just use that. You really need to look at why, what you're worried about, what's the risk, and approach it from the right way, just like you would any other software.
I totally agree with you, and I don't think organisations should be chasing the shiny new thing. They should really sort of do due diligence on that and really look into what they're bringing into their environments. Appreciate you sharing your opinion on that, Graham.
So looking at a bit more on the sort of leadership and knowledge sharing side of things, and you know, I guess we'll come shortly to more the community engagement that we touched upon at the head of the episode. What approaches do you think are the most effective in, you know, before we get to the community, what approaches do you think are most effective in building a sort of collaborative, resilient team environment, and especially with all the pressures that come of cyber?
Well, there's different types of leadership, and I think, you know, good leaders need to be able to adapt to the situation, get the best out of their teams. I mean, first of all, you start with hiring the best people for the job. You know, there is a balance between hiring people with experience and bringing people in with potential and drive. And, you know, a team is balanced in lots of different areas. But there's, you know, always been conscious that there's three things that research has shown that people need to be happy and productive and effective at work. And that's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. There's a book on it by, I think it's Daniel Pink, called Drive. But, you know, they're really important. So, you know, autonomy, and there's a balance of autonomy depending on individuals', you know, experience and their kind of position in the team. But, you know, everyone, most people hate being micromanaged, right? They want to be the expert in their area. So you give people the autonomy to be able to do their job effectively and to do what needs to be done in the way they want to do it. Now, you might need a bit of coaching. You might need to give individuals a bit of coaching or a bit of education in order to learn that best way. But yeah, you want to give people autonomy and the kind of ability to direct their own lives. Mastery, vast majority of people want to do a really good job and want to be the best at what they do. And, you know, you need to allow people to grow into that. You need to give them the opportunity to learn, and the time as well for that, and become, you know, a master of their own fields. And then purpose. So purpose is one that leaders, let's say the organization sets, your department lead sets, your individual leaders set within teams. But purpose, in the wider scheme of things, it's really the desire for people to be part of something that's larger than themselves. They want to contribute to a bigger picture, and that bigger picture can be all sorts of things in your organization. It can be fundamentally, in our organization as a law firm, we help clients with their challenges. And that's the bigger picture. What everything that we do in our team contributes to that one way or another. But also, we, fundamentally in the security team, we're keeping the business secure, and that's our fundamental purpose. So there's lots of different of these kind of purposes, but being clear on it, as in making sure everyone in the team knows what the business strategy is, what the department strategy is, what your own security strategy is, and just keeping the eye on the ball, and particularly through things like, goals or objectives. That really helps. Everyone wants to know really what they're there for, what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve is, and get the support needed. I think leaders also need to do two things really, really well, and that's communicating and coaching. So, communicating as part of that purpose piece, it's setting clear direction and ongoing kind of status updates for awareness. So it's just keeping that picture so everyone knows what's going on, what they're there for. Coaching, really about, and there's a difference between coaching and mentoring, but coaching is really about empowering colleagues to have mastery in their field. So it all leads back to those sort of three things, because once you have mastery, you can have autonomy, because you know what you're doing and you get on with it, and you've got purpose because you know what you're working towards. One of the things I quite like is the British Army has a leadership competency framework, and it's specifically for military leaders, but it's open source. Essentially, it's there to be consumed by anyone, and I think there's a lot of really good material in there for people that are interested in leadership and developing their own leadership skills. I think if you're in a business that has its own leadership framework, then that's great, and you can that's the one you'd be measured on and expected to meet. But just for general knowledge, I think the Army Centre for Leadership is a really good source. So you've got different kind of leadership skills, leadership spectrum from transactional leadership to transformational leadership, and I think within that there's coaching and mentoring, but there's also directive, at one end. And there are certain, especially in security, there are certain situations where you want directive leadership, where you want, right, there's usually, if there's, say, an incident or an investigation, right, there's a problem, this is what we need to do, you do that, you do this, it needs to be done quickly. That's where you need that kind of directive approach. But then for other situations, you need a more kind of visionary approach, where you're kind of setting a very concise direction. So you're not giving the details, you're not telling people what to do or how to do it, you're just saying, look, this is the direction we're going in, right, you're the experts in your area, you work out how we're going to get there, and you help coach people along the way. So there's quite a broad spectrum to it, and I think any good leader understands that spectrum and isn't just stuck in one of the areas.
And from we know how important networking as in your own experiences, and we certainly understand the importance of education and community engagement as a paramount and key priorities for all of us on this episode. Why do you feel that they're so important in cyber specifically, and how do you tend to incorporate them into your work?
It's the kind of job you just can't do alone. It's constantly changing and evolving, the threat landscape, the technology landscape, even the security technology landscape. you just can't keep up sitting on your own or with your head in books. You've got to go out into the community and attend events and understand what's going on in the wider world, sharing ideas. There's a lot of opportunity in this industry to learn from others, and I think it's really important to have big ears in this industry. Listen to what's going on. Doesn't mean you agree with it, but you can listen to what's going on and be open to other points of views and information sharing. And I think it's great if, lots of people in the industry are willing to share what they've seen as good practice or bad practice, and just generally sort of have a bit of a community there. I think it's also what's really important for having a community in this industry is also it can be it's quite a stressful type of job. Lots of jobs are stressful, and there's good stress and there's bad stress. But I think the job, because you're effectively defending a business against threats, it's quite nasty, really. It's too easy to get lost in that and feel like you're kind of under attack personally. Suffer from things like alerts, burnout. There's lots of information, there's lots of stuff going on. And of course, at the worst end of the scale, if you're in an organization that hasn't nailed security and you've got a lot of stuff exposed to the threats and are actually being hit by those threats and incidents regularly, that starts to take its toll. So I think by being part of the community, and the community is obviously very conscious of all of that for well-being, it's really good to share and to get help from other peers that have gone through all of that.
Yeah, I think on the event side of things, finding events is a bit of a challenge, because they only crop up, now and again, especially ones that are perhaps trusted and that can deliver quality and talks of relevance. It is really important to have that physical contact with individuals, especially from a well-being standpoint, as well as sort of gaining perhaps understanding of what's going on across sector, with your peers or even with your neighbours. So on that, Graham, I'm curious to gain your perspective in terms of how important are events such as DTX Manchester or DTX London to help foster collaboration and, of course, drive innovation in the industry.
Yeah, I think events like that are really important because they connect people together, and it's all about connections and experiences. You get to experience different viewpoints. You get to experience how the threat environment has changed. Some organizations might see it all, but other organizations might be a bit, might not get to see that bigger picture. So that information sharing is really crucial. I mean, you also get to see the new technologies that are there to help you protect your business. And, I'm never a fan of sort of sales-oriented events, but there is a place for it because, every organization buys software, buys security products, and you don't exactly see them advertised on the telly, when you're watching your stuff. So you kind of got to go out there and just see what's being showcased, what's changing, and ultimately talking to people that are, that have experiences of those security systems and of those vendors and of the threats as well.
Most definitely. And one thing that I enjoyed last year in particular at DTX was the fact that there are a lot of technical focused individuals on those exhibition stands answering questions to CIOs and CISOs. I've been to trade shows in the past where it's just sales personnel as opposed to those technical individuals. So I think that's obviously something that's going to be really important for leaders such as yourself, especially when you're making those buying decisions. You need to get certain questions answered and build rapport and trust with those vendors, which is obviously equally as important. And in particular, what's really exciting you about DTX or other events that are sort of over the course of 2025?
I just think it's a great opportunity to network with peers, and it's relatively small community, really. Every time I go to events, I see people that I know or have got to know over the years. I even, for many years, I bump into people who were, in the army, in the army, and how paths have crossed one way or another. So really, it is a small world, and it's just that opportunity to learn. That's the key thing, really. Understand, what is it, what is it like in other organizations? What are those people experiencing? I'm not alone. We experience similar things, but how understanding how others have addressed certain challenges, that's invaluable.
No, most definitely. And is there anything you perhaps want to see more of from events such as DTX?
Well, like you mentioned, it's really good to see individuals who are actually working at the coalface in security teams, dealing with the day-to-day stuff. It's great sometimes hearing from people at the top who are good at telling the story, but actually there's a lot of value in hearing from people who are actually dealing with the day-to-day stuff and really doing the doing. So that, I think, I love to see that when that happens.
No, I certainly agree with that. And looking to the future, Graham, what are your predictions for AI over the next 5 to 10 years?
So more agents, more automation. The automation, it really works. It's really of value. You still need the people behind it to feed and water it, and also deal with the output. You're always going to need troops on the ground to deal with stuff as it happens. But that automation is, it's really good and it really works. So the security teams having the ability to create agents themselves, is going to become much more of a skill. Be able to really understand how these AI models work and how you can cobble them together to perform tasks that really help you out. And I think we'll also see the technology landscape changing as well, particularly as agentic AI, automated kind of AI that does a task rather than just processing some data, being embedded in lots of physical products, so cars has been there for a while, but we are talking physical robots is increasingly the case that can actually perform tasks, and with that comes all the the security side, the operational side, and all of that. So I think that's something we're going to see a lot more of over the coming.
Tremendous amount of opportunity for security professionals then. I think the field is just going to continue to expand and increase opportunity, not just for threat actors, but for the protectors, of course, and for organizations.
That's it. And there's always going to be a threat, because there's always going to be a gain to be had from something, money or otherwise. And you're always going to need security people to mitigate those threats. Yeah, despite all the automation that I've seen over the years, it's not and not just in info security, in other industries as well. It's never translated into overall job losses. It might have translated, jobs may have changed, some jobs may have gone, others are created, but the overall is a net gain.
And for people that are just, starting out, aspiring to sort of cybersecurity associates who want to make that really meaningful impact, and especially with all the, the fact that they're coming now into a predominantly what will be AI driven sort of era. Briefly, what key pieces of advice could you give to junior and I guess to more experienced professionals to ensure that they continue to grow and thrive in their careers?
Yeah, but I think the future, in the not too distant future, holds certain roles being automated with physical robots, and that then allows the people to do other stuff. But of course, you then need people to maintain those robots, fix them, stop them being overtaken by the bad guys and used maliciously. So there's lots of potential. And of course, the people, kids that are going through school at the minute, the chances are the jobs that they will do, they don't even exist right now.
I certainly agree with you. And look, Graham, we appreciate you obviously sharing the perspectives on the show. And you've won awards in the past, such as Global CISO 100 and Team Leader of the Year. So I'm just curious to gain recognition such as that. What does that mean to you, and how does that shape your approach to leadership?
It's lovely to be recognised with an award. It's really nice to have those things. But really, what they mean is, no one does this job alone. We always, in the military, we always used to joke that, MBE stood for many blokes' efforts, OBE was other blokes' efforts. You don't stand alone. You're only as good as the people that support you in your business in general, the people that do all the hard work in your teams. Yeah, you can't do this job alone. So, these kind of awards, the recognition really, that's, the recognition for the whole team really. I'd say that as important as it's been to know how to search the internet, to learn, and to be able to sort of keep up to date with things and grow in your business, it's now really important to know how to use generative AI. It's really important to know how to prompt, and prompt engineering, as it was called. I don't think it's really turned into a thing, but you definitely need to know how to use these tools. And much of that at the minute is writing a prompt, knowing how to put the data in the right way. And of course, increasingly over the next few months and years, it's been able to create agents, which are low codes, the low or zero codes, but they can do multiple tasks. So, if you think of it at the minute, gone from, if I wanted to, arrange a holiday, I would have done a whole load of, Googling. I would have done a whole load of internet research on, where I wanted to go and cost of flights and all that kind of thing, and what, things to do in those locations. Now, I can write a prompt and put it into these models that can access the live internet, and it'll do the whole thing together for me, and it'll do it 10 times quicker than what I do, and with references that I can then check. So I think being able to really understand how to use generative AI tools really helps turbo boost your career and keep you, up to speed with your peers who are also learning how to do that.
And I suppose we always ask an analogy question on the podcast. We know that the cyber sector is full of analogies. We've heard many. What's your favourite analogy for cyber?
Well, quite often I try and sort of personify it into a kind of physical environment. So whether that's protecting a house with rooms in it, or protecting an estate of lots of houses, or a skyscraper, I try and bring it into the physical world, because something that everyone is familiar with. Doesn't always work, but I think you've got to, especially as a leader in this business, you've got to be able to explain what is complicated in really simple terms so people get it. Because if people don't get it, you're lost. You're not going to get the support that you need.
And I suppose finally, what does the future hold for yourself and for Irwin Mitchell, of course?
Well, the adoption of technology that we're doing, leveraging the latest tech like AI into lots of different areas of the business is really all about providing the best service to our clients. So, from my point of view, protecting our business, our clients, and our colleagues from those threats. But from a technology perspective and technology innovation, it's really getting the best out of technology to make the business more efficient, more productive, and offering that, that best possible service for clients. So, I really look forward to doing more in the tech and AI innovation space and seeing how that evolves. But also, being able to sort of coach and mentor the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, that's really at my stage of the game where that now means the most to me, to see people grow and learn and, and even take over me. that's what I look forward to.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, for any of our listeners who want to stay connected and obviously reach out to you for, future contact, and, other than LinkedIn, is there anywhere else beyond LinkedIn and the community platform that they may be able to reach out to you?
It's mostly LinkedIn, really. I do have a X, account, but I've never really got confident with, Twitter/X. I do use it to read and consume, and I find that really, really good for that. But I'm not the biggest social media kind of user. But so I'm on LinkedIn. I go to some of the industry events as well now and again. But happy for anyone to reach out to me if they need help.
That's brilliant. And for our audience, Graham's actually going to be speaking at DTX this April, so we do encourage you to attend and approach Graham if you've got any questions.
Absolutely. Graham, listen, thank you so much. I'm certain that the community and all of our listeners will have found a huge amount of value in what's been a really insightful episode, and you've really given some good detail. For people who want to continue the discussion and future engagement, as always, we invite you to join the community. We offer a range of collaborative solutions within the tech and security sector at no cost. Going forward in 25, we'll be launching more panel discussions, masterclasses and events, and obviously continuing exclusive interviews and podcasts such as this for all of our members. If you want to learn more, gain access to the community in any of our initiatives, please visit secure-recruitment.com/cyber-connect/. Thank you very much.
To encourage diverse and inclusive knowledge sharing, please like, subscribe and share on our YouTube channel.